welcome to our ELSA Alumni Career Series on the topic Career in Diplomacy. So now I get the information that you are recording. This is great. Thank you so much. So my name is Katja, Katja Schager, and I will moderate you through today's event. I am currently working at the Austrian Economic Chamber here in the office in Brussels. And before that, I worked for the Austrian Permanent Representation, more precisely for the Ministry for Digitalization and Economic Affairs. And yeah, I have been a part of ELSA Austria, so I was in the National Board of ELSA Austria and also held some positions as director on international level. So now let me introduce our amazing speakers for today. So in no particular order, I will just go through the pictures, how they appear to me. So first we have Julian Vassallo, who is currently the deputy head of the European Union delegation to North Macedonia. And previously he was part of the EU delegation to Turkey and the Philippines. And even before that, he served as head of the European Parliament office in Malta. Julian was president of ELSA Malta and also director of training of ELSA International. So then we have Marit Andria from Norway, who since August 2019 is working for the Norwegian mission to the EU in Brussels. So hi from Brussels to Brussels, as the Counsellor for Trade, Industries and Fisheries. And before that, she was working in the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Fisheries on international market affairs back in Norway. Before that, she lived with her family in Rome because of the work of her husband while she was on maternity leave. And even before that, she lived with her family in Sarajevo. She also moved there because of the work of her husband, but also had then the opportunity to work there for the Norwegian embassy in Sarajevo. So this is actually quite unique, I have to say, that you not only moved around the world because of your own job, but also moved around because of the jobs of your husband. So I really would like to hear more about that later on, that you all got it figured out where to move for which job, and this is very amazing actually. Marit was the vice president of AA in the International Board in the year 1996. So this is, I'm also very glad that you are, that we had someone around who was dealing with academic activities, as I was myself in this part in ELSA. So then last but not least, we have Christian Platte. He is since 2014, he works for the German Federal Foreign Office and serves there since 2017 as the head of unit of the EU sanction policy. And before that, he lived in Rome, in Italy, in Dipsili, in Georgia, and also in Sarajevo, in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Earlier, he even worked for the OSCE mission in Kosovo and Bosnia-Herzegovina. Christian has a local, national and international ELSA career and was in the board of ELSA Marburg, ELSA Germany, and also director of ELSA International. So we have everything covered here. So thanks so much for joining us for today's webinar. And let us start with the first questions. So what we all have in common here is that we were sooner or later at some part in our life, part of ELSA, and this took, I guess, from all of us a very intensive time of our career when it also was in our early years. So what I would like to know and give you with that as the first question is, how did your ELSA career shape your professional career? This would be really interesting, like also for the ones who are in the beginning of their careers, what in the ELSA career can help them out for later. So I would just start in the order again and start with Julian.
Well, I think the most important way ELSA shaped my career was the fact that as an ELSA member, I was happiest at the council meeting, surrounded by 300 people from different countries, arguing, discussing, taking some decisions, persuading each other, and having great parties. And I thought, how can I possibly do this for the rest of my life? So I chose diplomacy. By and large, it sort of fulfills that, that model. I remember my first posting as a diplomat was in New York with the Maltese at the United Nations. And I remember writing an article in the ELSA magazine at the time saying that this felt like ELSA for grown-ups. And it was, in a way. It was many of the skills that you use in ELSA, the way that you approach, if you're trying to approach an Italian person to vote for your resolution, or a Finn, or a Swiss, it's going to be different. And in diplomacy, it's the same thing. I think ELSA is also a great training ground, because it allows you to test your skills in a way, in a dry run, if you like, where you are allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to find where your strengths and weaknesses are. And I think it really laid the groundwork for me. And everything I've ever done, I owe to ELSA.
This is actually amazing. So you only choose this career because of ELSA. So this is very good to know. And yeah, then I pass on to Marit. Thanks so much, Julian.
Thank you, and hello everybody. Yes, I think ELSA, well, first of all, I have to say I started my law studies and I was always looking for the international part. I somehow grew up in a family with parents who've been trading in Europe. So, you know, traveling around Europe has always been a part of my life. And I had a friend who's also quite international minded, and she came to me one day and she said, look, there is this thing called ELSA. Why don't you come to the office and just, we should join there, come on. And that was really the start. And then I was in ELSA Oslo and doing already AA activities, and we tried to, well, I was supposed to run for the national board, but then I was somehow hijacked to go to Nottingham to the council meeting, and before I knew, was another Norwegian, Thomas Jacobsen, or also known as TJ, in the year before me, and they had obviously made some plans. So while I was there, I was approached and asked to run for the IB. And that was sort of the start. And I think what ELSA has done was, for the career is, although I sort of found myself somehow as a very Norwegian and, you know, rooted person, but on the other hand, if you look back on my life since ELSA, it has been a lot of traveling. I met my husband in ELSA. We were on the international board, Tommaso Andria. So of course, obviously ELSA has had a great impact on my life. And also, well, the career, I think that when I was done with law studies, I was looking for jobs that had some international aspects. In my first job interview, most of the time I spoke about ELSA. Because as you were saying, Julian, they were saying, so how do you feel about standing in front of people talking? Well, you know, I've done, whatever they asked and whatever they were trying to see what kind of skills I had, most of the time I had done exactly that in ELSA. So for sure, it helped into the first job, because I think they were impressed that all the things that you do when you're in ELSA, you get to challenge yourself and you get to try and you don't have to worry. We were just discussing before we met that one of the patrons of ELSA at the time, he told us that at the council meeting that when you're in ELSA or now as students, you are at your most professional ever. So obviously ELSA has a lot to learn from the practical skills and to do all those things that maybe takes years before you're allowed to do in a normal job. And I also felt very much at home in the international environment. I loved living in Brussels, although in 96 it was raining 24/7. I think the weather has improved in Brussels since then, but still just sitting on the bus, listening to different languages and so on made me feel at home. So, to travel around the world, and because of my husband's job, who is an Italian diplomat, but it has also given me opportunities and made me take opportunities as well, always international minded. So it's really given me, for sure, it has impacted on a lot to where I am now.
Sorry, thank you so much. I have like not unmuted myself before. So we already hear out of both of your speeches that the most of the skills are very much appreciated later on, and also like help you out in your further career and in your job. So now we would like, what do you think, Christian, about it?
Thanks, Katja. I think it's of course the same what Marit and Julian said. It's like in diplomacy, you're able to do kind of the same what you did in ELSA. It's like talking to people with different cultural background, with different interests, trying to understand what their interests are, what their motivation is for a specific position. It is very much the same setup, but for me it was not clear that I wanted to take this path in the beginning, but I did something that I think a lot of students and then graduates do, is like I just tried different paths. I did a lot of traineeships to try to find out what would interest me. And for me, the key event perhaps was when I found out that actually after traineeship in an embassy, that what these people are doing is kind of the same like ELSA, but you're paid. So I thought that this is quite cool. And then I decided to try it. And then I had the opportunity to first work for an international organization, because I thought like an international organization is perhaps closer to what I experienced with ELSA. It's not like representing a national interest, but an interest that is perhaps a bit more than this. And so I worked for the OC and for the UN administration in Kosovo, which was a real challenge. But also it showed me that there are limits also in these organizations. And then I had the feeling that I should perhaps try to work in the national diplomatic service. And I had the feeling it's like, you know, when you're sitting behind the side of Germany, and if it's ELSA Germany or if it's Germany, it's kind of the same. You know, you define interests, you try to negotiate, you try to understand what others want, and that's kind of the great thing. And I think that's what is really shared between all of us and also other former ELSA members that are working in diplomacy, that we all feel that we really learned this in ELSA. How to chair a meeting, how to write minutes, how to prepare for a meeting, how to try to find out about the position of somebody, how to negotiate, how to build an alliance. All this is ELSA, and all this is also like, you know, the real world and afterwards. But there's also another aspect between these kind of more, you know, business-like skills. And I think that's more like the emotional side. When you're working as a diplomat, you're moving each few years. So you have to adapt to a totally different environment, to a different culture, different languages. And some people fear that, some people perhaps don't mind it, and some other people are really enthusiastic about it. And I think most ELSA people are, and most of us here are, because it's such a positive thing for your life if you can learn about others. It's really enriching your life. And that's another aspect. It's really a choice for your life, regarding your lifestyle. And it's not only a normal regular job, because the job is very much influencing your private and personal life. And that's a big difference, but I really like it. Some people might not like it, but I think that's for Marit, Julian and us, this is also a really positive aspect that we learned to like in ELSA.
Thank you so much. Marit, you are back. Hopefully everything works. Okay, so I will pass on my next question to you. And I wanted to ask, like, you already said you felt like home in Brussels and that you felt very welcome there and all the different languages. But did you feel home in all the countries you lived at, or did you always like have a little bit was, I don't know, were homesick at sometimes to go back to Norway? Or how was that when you were living in Italy and Bosnia? How did you feel back then?
No, I think maybe when we left to Sarajevo, I was sort of, I mean, at the time we had one 1-year-old, and I, as I said, was following. But I think in the end, you are at home where your children sleep, or where your family sleep, or where you have your bed maybe, and I think along the way, you just get into the society and you meet all these amazing people, and you get these new opportunities. So I think well, for sure I have felt at home all the places. In Rome we were sort of not expats, but we were at home, but and then by the time we got there we had 3 children, so it was a total different setting again. But I think maybe the best part has always been when I've been able to work as well. I mean, in Rome, I was full-time busy with the kids because Tommaso was working and traveling a lot. But I think also here, I mean, I really enjoy living in Brussels. I feel at home here. And I think, even as I said earlier, that I felt before that I was a very sort of rooted person. When this opportunity came up and why I moved to Brussels, or the children and I moved to Brussels, because Tommaso had already been here for 2.5 years before we came, I just felt that it was about time to leave. And I think this is what Christian was saying as well. You have it in you somehow. And I think the fact that you know what kind of friendship you get, you've seen it through ELSA, and these are lifelong friends. I mean, Julian I saw for the first time, a year ago, that I hadn't seen him for ages, and still you just connect, and you have, I don't know, there is something, if it's in our genes or else fed us with it, I don't know, but there is a way of feeling at home because you meet people that make you feel at home. So all the places have been amazing challenge, and maybe Sarajevo, the first posting was the most, the one that impacted the most. It was, of course, a country who had lived through extreme difficulties. And funny enough, when we were in ELSA in '96, we actually arranged a law school in Bosnia. So we sort of already had a step there, and that was just after the war. But we had never dreamt that one day we would live there together as a family. So there are so many ways to feel at home in a place.
Thank you so much. So I will, like what Marit said now, like Christian, that you also like had like this drive for moving to other countries. So now you live back in Germany. Do you now feel like somehow grounded and you want to stay there, or do you still have in mind maybe it was not the last country you will be living in and you are still looking forward to something else?
No, I'm definitely looking forward to moving again. There's always a big difference actually where you work. If you work at an embassy abroad, or if you work at the headquarters of the ministry back home. So the work is different, and I'm back since 6 years, more than 6 years. So I'm really looking forward to change again. On the other hand, I mean, that's a professional part of it. The other part is, of course, like family, and it's always hard then to leave, and it gets more hard to leave and to change when the kids are getting bigger, because I mean, you have your all your friends there, and they have their friends, the school, and so on. But on the other hand, also I think they are looking forward to move. So we will move next year again. It's always a bit like, feeling sorry to leave. You're becoming a bit melancholic on the last days when you're packing everything, when your house is empty, things are in your boxes, and you're waiting just for the flight, and you're seeing for the last time perhaps the friends and that you met nearly each day. But then you're also becoming really excited about the new job, the new challenges, the new tasks that you have. And because that's also another thing, we always have different jobs, totally different jobs. I mean, it's if I also consider what I did in Kosovo in the very beginning, it was building up judiciary. It was work in the field of rule of law, human rights. Then I was working in political affairs and cultural affairs. I was a spokesperson of an embassy. I was dealing with protocol affairs. And so there are a lot of different things that you do. And when you move to a new posting, it's a new challenge. So it's always being excited how it will be. So I really look forward to move again, to have something new after quite some time here back in Berlin. But I must also say that actually the job that I have now is the most interesting that I ever had. As I'm dealing with sanctions, as you said before, you can imagine that we have quite a busy time these days. So it's really challenging to be in the focus of the big political topics and issues, and to contribute to European joint answers. I think that's really interesting, and it's one of the most incredible things I ever did. But on the other hand, it's like, you know, looking forward to change. And that's also something that you can see in ELSA. I mean, we change, of course, and there are a lot of things developing with the friends that you have everywhere. And it's the same with the job. I mean, being a diplomat doesn't mean that everything stays the same. And that's perhaps the best thing about it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So to keep on this track of personal question, Julian, I mean, maybe more people, even in the ELSA world, or young people would consider taking a career as a diplomat, but then they are kind of afraid, how will it be to have like a boyfriend or a girlfriend? How will it be with family? These are some things they might take some people back, and they decide for this reason for a different career because they are afraid of these things might not work out when you choose this career. So how do you see it? How do you think this influenced your family, your kids, and how do you think this all got along with all of you?
Yes, I think it's really true. When you take a career in diplomacy, it's a career for the whole family. I mean, you are not you are taking your entire family along, and in particular your spouse. Quite frankly, if your spouse is somebody who is happier around her old group of friends and family, and doesn't have ambition to go out and see the world, it's a recipe for disaster. You cannot drag somebody across the world for the rest of their lives. You can get away with it for a year or two, but you can't do it if your spouse doesn't also have that wanderlust. I mean, when I think about, you know, Christian was saying how everywhere is different. I mean, when I think, and unexpected, dramatic things happen. I mean, I'm getting a reputation of bringing disaster with me, because I went to New York and we had the dot-com bubble burst. We had 9/11, we had the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war all while I was there. I went to the Philippines and they had the largest typhoon in history to ever make landfall. I got posted to Turkey, and for a moment there I thought, Turkey's nice, but it may be a bit dull. And I was there in the last 4 years, so we had a coup d'etat, 3 invasions of Syria. You know, the country, as you know, has a very complicated relationship with the EU that we had to manage, lots of terrorist attacks. And this, you know, this has a dramatic effect on your family life, obviously. I mean, the night of the coup d'etat, you know, the ambassador was away. I was the one cabling back to Brussels all night to explain what was going on. I had my laptop, my phones. I was receiving information from different sources and feeding Brussels. And for about 5 hours, till about 4 o'clock in the morning, it all seemed like a video game. Suddenly we had, because we lived close to the Turkish television station, we had attack helicopters shooting missiles from literally outside our window. And suddenly it all came to you, this is not a video game, this is not an online business, this is real life. You drop everything, you take your kids, you away from the windows, you put them on mattresses by the front door, and you hope they're safe. And you know, I've seen a lot in the places I've been posted, but I don't think I am unique. You do need a family that is adventurous, that is interested, that is ready to pay the price of having to make new friends to gain the exceptional experiences. But there's also a flip side to it, and I have a cousin who grew up in this life, and he told his wife, his Swedish wife, he said, now that we're married, we should go and live abroad with our family, because he said, in my experience, nothing brings a family together like going somewhere out of your comfort zone, having to all of you start from scratch, make new friends, parents and children, new schools, new colleagues. It brings you together, and I think this is very, very true. So diplomacy is not anti-family at all. On the contrary, I think it can make your family stronger, but it is only for particular families.
I see Marit is nodding. Do you want to add something?
No, I think Julian is absolutely right. I mean, so the second time, when we left Norway again now a year ago, I had been in home, as I said, for 2.5 years, and why? Well, it was just the way it had to be, because and that could be. I mean, I have sort of come into diplomacy. I am in diplomacy at the moment. In the mission of Norway to the EU, which is a different kind. I'm not a career diplomat, but I am here sent as the sort of special sending for fisheries in the mission, and that mean, which of course was an opportunity. Well, I was suggested to go, and I of course took the opportunity also because Tommaso was already here. But I think the flexibility in a family is also important. Of course, having been the spouse coming back from 7 years abroad from Norway when we came back, you have to start a bit on scratch. But I think the most important thing, and the reason why it went well, is also because of the flexibility. When I went to Sarajevo, I went to the embassy and I said, listen, can I do anything? You know, I'll put the stamps on the envelope. Yeah, I do anything. I just want to, and of course, the moment they get you in, they always had to have a job for you. So in Sarajevo, from being sort of part-time, I don't know what, I had an offer to work there permanently for the last period we were there, because there was another diplomat that was in maternity leave. So I think you get the flexible family. And now that we came here, our children were, well, now they are soon 11, 13 and 16. And before we came here, I thought this would be the most disastrous time to move children from their home, because after all, they had been 7 years in Norway. But now they really get the most of it. They go to international schools, they realize what's good schools, they realize they get friends forever from all over the world. And I was just asking our middle one, who's probably the one who is more, well, she needs more, say, or she takes a bit more time to settle somewhere, let's say. And I said, so are you sad that you don't go to the same school as your friends back home? And she said, no, I'm you know, they know that this is a plus for them. They enjoy it. And of course they see, we've been to the ELSA house with the 3 of our kids at the, you know, and they were like, is this what you did? You know, they really realized that, you know, you have friends forever. And of course who doesn't want to have friends forever?
Do they still have mouses there? Mices.
Well, they definitely had the books and you know the little law reviews from '96 in the basement, and they had a lot of things. So that was really a very interesting experience. I mean, Christian was there as well. So so it was just. But it is something that gives you something special to travel around, and I totally agree. This thing that it puts the family together, because they also see that, okay, we have to start new jobs, we have to do things that of course you don't always feel on top of it for day one. You have to make new friends, and I think sometimes it's good also for the children to see that what they are going through every day, you know, we also have to do as adults, but it works.
Yeah, true. So Christian, do you also have similar experiences with this, like Julian and Marit?
Definitely, I actually have the same feeling like Julian regarding like attracting disaster. To whenever, I mean, there is a new posting, for example, when I mean, Kosovo of course was different. That was quite shortly after the war, so the situation was a real challenge. But then, for example, in Tbilisi, when my wife arrived there, she went there earlier for her job for a German foundation. I mean, after 2 days, I got the phone call from her asking me if I could check what to do if you have tear gas in your office, because there was some violent manifestations just in front of her office door, and so the police dispersed it. So that was her start. My start was just like after a few weeks with the war between Russia and Georgia. That was also quite a challenge. And even in Rome, which was a fantastic posting and a nice place. I mean, the Pope stepped down, so that was also quite unexpected, I must say. But on the other hand, as also the other said before, I mean, there are a lot of things that are really incredible. For example, I would have never imagined that I would live in the center of the historic part of Rome, with a view from a roof terrace to St. Peter's Dome, to Castel Sant'Angelo, to see the black smoke, the white smoke I missed for the election of the Pope, from my terrace, to have, for example, to be in Rome at this incredible night when the new Pope was selected, however. And everybody was rushing to St. Peter's, and you heard the church bells everywhere. These are the things that are incredible, that you can experience something like this. Or, for example, to see, like, you know, how great it is to have, you know, friends everywhere that you worked with and lived with in a difficult situation, like, for example, during the war in Georgia, to experience something like this, and to see them then again after some years, and to find out that you still have this fantastic basis of this, what you experienced together. And that's, again, like ELSA. But I think it's also what is important, what Julian said, it's really, I mean, it's not for everybody. You have to find your way, but if you want it, and if you're really committed to it, it can be, this kind of life can be extremely beneficial for everybody in the family, and also for your partner. So for me, it was like, I mean, I'm the diplomat in the family when my wife is working for a foundation, but until now I was only kind of following her, because she got the offer, for example, to go to Tbilisi, and then I tried to organize going there. Or the same with Rome, and that's perhaps also something that is quite typical for this kind of lifestyle, that sometimes that's quite short notice. So I remember that I was in the mountains with some friends because we wanted to train for climbing the Mount Kaspek, and we failed actually in the end. But I got this phone call from my wife at something like 10 on the Saturday morning. We were just like hiking over one of these glaciers, which was really nice. She told me, like, hey, I have until 12 o'clock to decide if I accept this job offer for Rome. And we wanted to stay another year in Tbilisi. So then, I mean, what can you say? Of course, he said yes, because it was a fantastic offer for her job. And then we found a solution that I could join her a few months later. But of course, you should never be afraid of something like this. If you're afraid of things like that, and you would not feel comfortable with these kind of sometimes abrupt changes in your life, then perhaps it's a wrong choice. And now it's, again, I mean, we will see that how we will organize ourselves for next year. So it's quite clear that we will have the same, we can work at the same place, but it's not quite clear if there will be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months in between. And of course, it's a challenge with the kids then, and the school and so on. But that's something, I mean, we are both sure that it will be solved, and we are looking forward to experience something new again.
This is great, especially the experience with the smoke. Yeah, so Julian, I wanted to ask you, I saw in your curriculum that you have the unique experience that you were a diplomat for a country and then a diplomat for the European Union. So how is it different from each other? Is it like similar tasks, or is it completely something else? Julian, we don't hear you. You are on muted.
There are obviously similar tasks, but it is a very different job. particularly if the country that you work for is as small as Malta, where you know, Christian mentioned when you sit behind the Germany plate, people will listen to you. It's not always the case with the smaller countries, and that's a reality that you have to accept as a diplomat. And it will be different on different issues, but that is, you know, that is perhaps the biggest difference. And of course, when you have the European Union plate in front of you, it's a different ballgame. What is nice about working for your own country is, of course, we all have love for our country, and it's nice to go to wake up in the morning and go to work and do something for your co-citizens. As an EU diplomat, you also feel that on a bigger scale, if you like, but it's not as, you know, specific. You are also representing countries that you don't know as well as your own. That's for sure. I have to say that I prefer working probably for the European Union because it is a bit more like ELSA, in the sense that one of the daily flavors and challenges, but also most rewarding thing is, you know, I have a team, quite a big team from many different countries. And as we all know, European cultures are still very different. Different work ethics, different approaches, and working with these and making them fun and making them an asset rather than an obstacle to getting things done is a big part of the fun of what I do. Also, working for the EU, you are of course coordinating the positions of member states you know, all over the world. I'm a convinced European, and working to get a common position on anything amongst European partners gives you an extra sense of satisfaction. You feel like, especially in foreign policy, where the European Union is still building itself up, you're not just continuing something that was already there, but you are actually constructing something, and you're learning from your colleagues learn from you, and I have to say, working for the EU is a good employer, an interesting employer. It's not perfect, there's no perfect employer, but I feel that it corresponds to the ELSA spirit that we knew those years ago.
Okay, thank you so much. So Christian, you also told us that you chose your career because of ELSA, but it's not so easy to become a German diplomat. So how was it for you, the process, and how in the end did you made it, and how did you feel like when you made it? It's like only a bunch of people out of, I don't know, many hundred manage it, right?
Actually, I'm still convinced that they did a mistake with the list, but not sure. No, it's extremely difficult. But on the other hand, I mean, you have to be lucky, and I was lucky that that I got this job. On the other hand, you can also prepare for these kind of tests. In this exam that you take for joining the German diplomatic service is like, everybody thinks it's the most difficult one in Germany. I don't think so. If you know how to prepare for it, I think then it's not too difficult. And you just have to be interested in, you know, the general political affairs, but also cultural affairs, sports, whatever. And if you have this broad interest in things, and if you're reading newspapers, watching the news, and if you have a good general knowledge and good language skills, then you can make it. And then you have to be lucky, of course. I mean, there are a lot of excellent people that try it and they don't get it. And sometimes when you meet some of your colleagues, you wonder how they managed. But I mean, generally, it's, I think these exams are difficult, but you can really make it. But I must say that after having this temporary assignment for the OC and UN mission in Kosovo, I applied for the German Foreign Service, but I also applied for the UN career service. And then before I got the results from the UN, exam, I got the offer for the German diplomatic service, so I accepted this. But these exams were quite different. And I must say that I like the German one a lot more. I think that's why I was also successful there, but also for the UN one, I mean, that's also a really interesting career, and there are so many other international organizations that offer fantastic career opportunities in diplomacy, with perhaps some advantages that you don't have to move so often, but if you like to, you can, with a more clear, perhaps like, you know, career path, because it's not so general that you can do culture or political affairs or press or whatever, but that you're more focusing on one field of expertise. For example, I mean, if you look at the International Labour Organization or something like this, that's also interesting career paths. But I think it's not really, I mean, of course, it's in a way, you make the choice that to apply, but in the end, you need to be really lucky to get this. But there's one interesting phenomenon, because if I look at the numbers for people applying for jobs actually in the German Foreign Service, we have now a lot more assignments for just like with a contract for 1 or 2 years. And there the numbers are increasing a lot of people applying for these jobs, while the ones applying for the lifetime career, which is still quite high, but they're staying the same. So I think there are also a lot of people who just would like to try if this is the way for them, because it's not only the choice for your job, but also for your life, as we said before.
Thank you so much, Christian. So, Marit, what challenges did you face in your career? You can give some younger members some advices to that they don't step in the same challenges.
Well, I don't know if it has been too many challenges. I think I was, as I said earlier, quite focused on doing something international. If I should say anything, and this is of course related to the life we live at the moment, the biggest challenge was probably coming back to Norway after we had been 7 years abroad. Because you have to start climbing again, you know, they don't really believe that you learn so much outside. Since I am, you know, not then a career diplomat, but I went back to, well, in the end I had to quit my job, and then I got a job in the ministry I'm in now, and then the two of them merged so that you have trade, industry and fisheries in the same, because I was only in fisheries before. And that can be a challenge, and I guess it still is like this, even in a country like Norway, where we like to believe that we are very much equal. It's easier for men probably than women, but on the other hand, I think the advice I would just say is just to relax. I mean, don't plan everything, and just take the opportunities, raise your hand, and just try, and don't be afraid of jump. I mean, you've been jumping so many times in ELSA already. So I think that's the most important thing. And then if it doesn't work the first year or the second year, well, something is going to come along. And so I think that is the most good advice I can give, because also, I mean, through the years I was in Oslo doing, then I was also traveling up and down to Brussels all the time, doing internal market affairs, and a bit to what Christian was saying, then I was doing more general things. Norway didn't count anything, so I always had to run and find the sign of Norway, because I always forgot that Norway is not, well, we're not a member, but you know, we are a very close partner and we're in the internal market, but still. But then you come here as the Council for Fisheries, and you know, you feel like a rock star, because Norway is the country they want to talk to, because we, you know, so again, it all depends what you're working with, but you know, the opportunities are going to come along. So that's probably the best advice I can give.
Okay, thank you so much. So that means when you came back to Brussels, you felt like a rock star. So this is maybe my last question to you guys before we open to the audience. So how long did it take for you to feel as important as with your ELSA tasks? Everyone can answer.
I mean, until you make president of your country, you never quite add up. No, this is the thing with ELSA. So many big titles. So president, so young. No, I think it's true that ELSA can confuse you a little bit with all these positions, and then you start working from the bottom. But I think I think it really gives you the right attitude to make it up the ladder, because so much of the human things that you learn in ELSA work in diplomacy. It's as simple as that.
Great. So Christian or Marit?
Yeah, actually, I haven't thought about it, but Julian, you're right. I mean, it's like the funny thing is that ELSA and diplomacy is about really cool titles. So that's perhaps like one of the things that's similar. No, I must say that it's really, I mean, you have a lot of responsibility when you're working in ELSA. It's like you have a lot of people that you have to motivate, you have to understand the interests of others, you have to bring all this together, you have to really think carefully how to do things to get everybody on board. And that's a lot of responsibility. And also when you're organizing a big S&C event or whatever, I mean, it's like you have quite a lot of, like, you know, colleagues that you work with together, and you have to motivate them, and you have to bring this project to a successful end. And that's something that perhaps might arrive later in your career. But if I look at the number of team members I had, I mean, when organizing a big ELSA event, you had more team members or staff than what I had in my first job in Kosovo, which was already quite incredible, because they're at something like 25 or something. That's something, I mean, it takes quite some time until you reach this this level again. But it's, I think the great thing about ELSA is that, I mean, you can, like Julian said before, I mean, you can try things and you can also do mistakes. And that's perhaps the difference. You shouldn't do too many mistakes in diplomacy.
Thanks so much.
No, I think I agree. And I think maybe one of the things that you take along often, hopefully, is the confidence. You've done a lot of things before, and you have a kind of, you know, you have a backpack there filled up with experiences already that makes you suited for meeting the world somehow. And if, you know, and maybe on top of it, if you go into almost any city in Europe, you would have friends there that you have been either drunk with or been to a seminar with, which actually do help if you're in trouble. So I think that's really, something. You have something that is extremely unique. And I think also in ELSA, you really see that if you're a big country or a small country, you make results together across Europe already at the age of being a student. And you know, for us who are all dealing with European affairs, that's something we have taken into our jobs today.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you. I mean, the time is already, it's quite late already. So maybe we open now up for the audience, that they also can ask their question to you. So Denise.
Hi, Katja. First of all, again, thank you all so very much. Now I would like to take 1 minute of technical break while I give the panelist rights to our attendees. And I will see you in 60 seconds all with your questions. Then you can either use the, actually, instead of taking a break, what I will do now, I will stop recording. Katja, I see there is a